Hi, everyone. My name is Betsy Cooper, and I'm the director of the Aspen Tech Policy Hub, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to our first informational webinar on our spring and summer policy programs. Before we dive into the content, a bit of background on who we are. The Aspen Tech Policy Hub is a West Coast policy incubator training a new generation of tech and STEM policy entrepreneurs. We take STEM experts, we teach them the policy process through a variety of programs, including the ones we're sharing with you here today. We encourage these experts to develop outside-the-box solutions to society's problems, and we help our trainees pitch their ideas to real decision makers to ensure that they have outsized impact. And today we're going to be talking to you about two programs. First, our full-time Science and Technology Policy Fellowship, and second, our Writing for Policy short course. We're actually going to invite two of our alums to share their experiences with you, and then we'll make sure to leave plenty of time for audience Q&A. So first, our Science and Technology Policy Fellowship. So this fellowship begins with a mandatory 3 to 4 week boot camp in which we teach you to have policy impact. And then it's followed by an optional 2-month project period in which you'll have the opportunity to workshop and pitch a real idea to a real stakeholder. In the mandatory boot camp, that will occur from June 5th to June 28th in person here in San Francisco at the Presidio location Tides. This is a full-time program, so we expect you to fully participate during that time, and you would get a $7,500 stipend for participating. During that time, you'd get a lot of different types of classes to help you build your toolkit to impact policy. So we teach you sessions around what is policy and how to advocate for policy, build outputs, map stakeholders. We'll teach you how to communicate for policy, things like translating concepts and writing memos. And then also we'll give you lots of skills around engaging with government. So whether that be how to think about executive agencies or also to think about ethics of engaging with government stakeholders. And we make sure that your work is very practical. So we have lots of practical exercises such as writing a policy memo or participating in community policy issues. And then you also get the opportunity to pitch those ideas to real policy stakeholders. So we never want your work with us to be, just theoretical. We want you to have the opportunity to actually engage and have the chance to make real impact. And of course, as mentioned, you get $7,500 for participating. We expect that to cover your lodging while you're here. And then if you are coming from other locations, we also provide a small travel stipend. The optional project period is remote and will occur from June 28th to August 25th. If you choose to participate in this program, you would have to commit 8 to 10 hours a week virtually where you work on a project that we define with you and receive close guidance and feedback from Hub staff. If you complete the project phase, you will receive an additional stipend. And then there is an exit fee note that if you don't complete the projects, then you would have to pay a fee back to cover the time spent helping you prepare. The projects should seek to affect policy change without lobbying. We'll work with you to define this, but that essentially means you can't try to change legislation or impact political campaigns. And you would not need to decide whether you will participate in the project until you begin the fellowship itself. If you join this program, we do have some expectations. First, that you commit to us like the equivalent of a full-time student during the boot camp, and to take 8 to 10 hours a week if you decide to participate in the optional project phase. You will create a suite of policy outputs. So as part of the final project sprint during the 3-week boot camp, we will give you a real policy project and you will have to work for a handful of days on producing something. And then again, if you do that as part of your final project, you'll again be creating a suite of policy outputs. In terms of eligibility for our full-time fellowship, we're looking for anyone with an interest in science and technology policy. So if you're a founder, you're a think tanker, you're faculty, you're a student, you work at a company, all of those folks are eligible. You don't need to have previous policy expertise or degrees. To the contrary, this is an introductory program, and most people with policy work experience will be too advanced for this program. But you do need to have professional experience in science and technology. So you will need to make a case that you have experience. If you're a student still, you will need to demonstrate that you have strong expertise in these areas. And other requirements include that you be 21 years of age or older, that you have English fluency, that you can spend 3.5 weeks full-time in person in San Francisco, and that you have work authorization in the United States. Who's interesting to us for these programs? We're particularly interested in folks that are focused on the following priority areas: cybersecurity, emerging technologies, which includes artificial intelligence, and climate, including clean energy, environmental justice, and tech. And then we're also particularly interested in anyone who works directly with communities that face marginalization and/or that are seeking to tackle disparities around race and ethnicity, age, gender identity, sexual orientation, disability, and other aspects of diversity. But we'll consider other priorities as well. If you don't fit into one of our priority areas, that's absolutely okay, as long as you have strong expertise in some aspect of science and technology policy, and you want to learn how to use that expertise to impact policymaking. So that is our fellowship. And then quickly, let me talk a bit about our Writing for Policy short course. This is a virtual program that will happen in April and early May. So it will occur from April 29th to May 3rd. And so we'll have set times each day. So it's 2 hours from 11:30 to 1:30 Eastern. This is an unpaid program, and our goal here is really to teach passionate subject matter experts who have good ideas how to develop those skills in communicating them, both to help you with future applications to our programs and to help you more generally have policy impact. So this course will focus specifically on classes to build your writing. So basic writing tips, informational policy writing, how to write persuasively, how to de-jargon technical language, and we'll have opportunities for you to practice these with exercises such as writing a policy memo. And we'll also have you workshop a piece of policy writing over the course of the 5 days and give you personalized feedback on it. If you join this program, we again expect you to commit to us like an engaged student during class. There will be work outside of class in addition to the 2-hour commitment daily. And you will create at least one piece of policy writing during the course as well. So that likely will be a policy memo that you can submit to other stakeholders. And then who is eligible? Science and technology experts with little to no writing experience. So again, if you're an engineer, business executive, think tank lawyer, you're all eligible. You do need to be 21 years of age again to be fluent in English, to commit to the 5 daily sessions, and to either live in the United States, so be physically present here, or be a US citizen or permanent resident living abroad. So again, here's some information to help you decide which program to apply for. You can apply to one or both, or it's up to you. We do ask that you pick the programs you're most interested in. Your interest in one does not affect the other. We evaluate them entirely separately. So the Science and Technology Fellowship will focus on how do you impact the policymaking process, and it'll give you different skills like writing and reading, problem definition and advocacy, and understanding the structures with an optional final project. The writing short course will focus more specifically on policy writing, so from basic writing skills on down to how do you put together a policy memo. Then in terms of the logistics, again, the Science and Technology Fellowship has the mandatory 3 weeks and then optional part-time project. That's actually a typo. It should be, it's an optional approximately 7-week program. And then the writing for short course is only 1 week part-time, but no paid, no stipends. And then the eligibility requirements are pretty similar, but we are looking generally for people in the writing short course who might be interested in the future in applying to our programs, although that is not a requirement to participate. So in terms of the application process, the application will be due by 11:59 p.m. Pacific time on March 7th. You may apply to both programs, and we will give you links on how to work on those. And then we will be reviewing in the fellowship process. There will be application review and notification of finalists in April. There will be an interview process, and we will select in early May. And then for the writing short course, it's an abbreviated process, so there will be no interviews, and we will be notifying you of your finalist status in late March. Some quick tips for applicants. So first, make sure you explain in either application why you'd like to be part of these programs and how you use the learnings. One of the things that we take into account is how much impact can we have if we admit you to these programs. So please make sure that you give us information about how we can impact you. And make sure you give us a strong resume or LinkedIn profile to showcase your science and tech expertise. So if you haven't updated your LinkedIn lately with all of your information, you might want to consider submitting a resume. And we do prefer resumes if possible because they tend to have a little bit more information. Note, you cannot use generative AI tools for these applications. We ask you to certify that you have not done so. Our goal in these programs is to teach you how to write and think. And so we are unable to evaluate your application if you've used external tools to help you write it. In terms of writing a policy memo, so in the fellowship application, you do have to write a policy memo. So first, make sure you identify a specific problem you want to work on and give us information about why you have expertise to work on that. So instead of talking about AI generally, you could identify a problem related to AI facial recognition technology as it's used by law enforcement. So that's an example of a specific problem. And then in the memo itself, do not just spend your time recapping your problem. Give us your bottom line up front. What is the solution that you are proposing to solve your problem? What stakeholder are you targeting that solution to? And then make your recommendation and explain it. Give us an argument for why that solution is the right one. Feel free to use online resources to help support your point, but again, don't use the space of your memo to recap your problem. Use the information that you've provided about the problem to make a case for why your solution is the right one. So you've heard me talk plenty. Now I'd like to turn to two amazing Hub alumni, Diana and Swati, who are going to help us share a little bit more information about the program and what it's really like, because it's better for you to hear from them rather than me. As we move into this phase, feel free to put some questions into the Q&A, either for our guests or for me to answer, as we will move into Q&A after we speak with Diana and Swati. So Diana and Swati, thank you so much for being here. We're delighted to have you. So first, maybe I'll turn to Diana first. Can you tell us a little bit about the program you were a part of? Why did you participate in a Hub Fellowship, and what was your specific program focused on?
Yeah, so hello, and thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be a part of this webinar and help to kind of spread the word and encourage other folks to join and have the wonderful experience that I had in the program. So I participated in the inaugural cohort of the Aspen Nonprofit and Public Interest Policy Training Fellowship. So it was specifically for nonprofits learning to make impact in their community. So, this program specifically focused on public interest organizations and helping them build capacity to influence policy in whatever space they're in. So for me in particular, it was for policy and digital equity. Do you want me to stop there, or should I go a bit into why I participated in the program?
Yeah, why don't you talk about why you participated, and then we'll turn to Swati, and then I'll give you a few more questions.
Yeah, sure. So I was one of the few folks in our cohort that had some policy experience, in the sense that I had written comments before and participated in some statewide level discussions with electeds. However, I really was participating in this program so that I can kind of strengthen that foundation and base. I learned just kind of on my own how to engage in this work. And so this program really provided a structure for me around that. And that's really what I was looking for. Also, my organization is looking to, or at that time was looking to grow into providing more policy work and, affecting or trying to affect change in the policy space for digital equity. And so, I joined the program so that I could learn a little bit more about it and lead those efforts for our organization.
Fantastic. And Swati, you had a very different experience. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why you joined the program and what you were hoping to get out of it?
Definitely. And thank you also for inviting me to join. I'm actually also learning from Diana about this new fellowship that was exciting. Yeah, so I was part of the climate cohort that was run in in the summer of 2022. So it's been about a year and a half. And the focus of that specific fellowship program was to help selected fellows who often maybe have deep technical experience in science or engineering. Or in my case, I knew international development, I knew international policy, but not domestic policy. So it was meant to kind of bring us all together and teach us how to effectively influence and contribute to climate policy development in the domestic or US space. I started my career The reason I applied is basically I started my career in public health. And when I was working overseas, I ended up doing a lot of work on climate adjacent topics like water security, environmental hazards, things like that in low and middle income countries. And the more I was learning about these topics and working on them, the more I realized that many of them basically experience a ripple effect from policies that are made in the United States and reach outwards. And so I had no experience in domestic policy work, how federal government worked, how state governments worked in the US. And I felt that learning more about this particular area of climate policy would really help the work that I was doing because often we advocate for standards or we try to learn from the US's experiences. Yeah, and so that's why I was very lucky, I think, to get into this fellowship and gain a lot of knowledge in that space.
Fantastic. And so, could you each just, and maybe I'll begin with you, Swati, could you talk a little bit about a day in the life of a fellow? What was it like, for you participating in the fellowship?
Yeah, it's a lot of work, I will say. It was a lot of work. They definitely set your expectations to say that it is a lot of work. It is like a full class day, essentially. And especially if you're not used to being in class. I hadn't been in class for 10 years before I came to this fellowship. I think the first week is a little tough, but it was always very fun and educational and structured. I've done a couple of fellowships before, the Aspen Fellowship, and I'm still doing other training or leadership courses now. And I can say that there's no comparison when it comes to the amount of content, structure, and strategy that's put into this particular fellowship. So usually we had a few hours of training or yeah, a few hours of training, and then we would have speakers come in the afternoon who work in the climate policy space to kind of share their experiences of how they're trying to influence policy from their respective roles. And then we would also have, and the range of guest speakers was excellent. You know, we had like Tom Khalil, who was like, I think the deputy director for technology and innovation for the Obama White House. We had someone who was the senior advisor for on environment for the Office of Mayor of San Francisco, I think. And then we also had Nicole Tisdale, who came in and did a little bit of training, led some training with us on public speaking. And she also like gave us a lot of motivational speeches about how you can influence policy at every level, regardless of where you are.
Fantastic. Diana, anything to add about what a day in the life was like for you?
Yeah, I would say just to add, the only other thing is that there's a lot of reading too, so you got to make time to go home or back to where you're staying and do some reading. So all of that, and there's some reading and some activities that you work on as well. So there's a full day and some homework to do too.
Yeah,
Awesome.
a full school day. Yeah.
And so can you talk about how you use the fellowship now? So Diana, maybe I'll go with you first. Like, what did you find were the most valuable aspects of the fellowship? Are you using it today? And if so, how?
Yeah, so I think that what I found most valuable about the program, again, was kind of learning those foundational skills for engaging in policy, in policy altogether. So defining your problem, way more complicated than I initially thought was going to be. It took a whole lot of time, which I think was really great discussion and lots of wonderful feedback that we received from the folks that we were working with at Aspen to really help carve out and define those policy problems. Also, I think that understanding the understanding kind of the different methods that you can take, and the impact that each of those methods can take. So everything from, writing comments to actually going directly to a, maybe a division director at an organization, like what different types of activities you can engage in to achieve policy impact. I think that going into it, I hadn't learned all of those intricacies. And then I would say that since then, I've used my training in a couple of ways. One of those ways has just been in engaging with state digital equity plans, so submitting comments and feedback for state digital equity plans. I also, as part of my final project, worked on making some tweaks and changes to the FCC's ACP program guidelines. And so, assuming this program gets back on board and refunded, we could potentially be seeing some changes to the guidelines for rollout of that program. And so I was able to take the learnings and specifically some of the work that I did for the final project to actually apply them in the real world.
Fabulous. What about you, Swati?
I think Diana covered in the beginning, like just a lot of great points that I would have spoken to as well. I came out with such a better appreciation, I think, of US climate policy and just all the work that goes into it. I think, as you remember, Betsy, like we spent a lot of time on regulations.gov learning about how to write and submit comments, which took a lot more work than you expect. And you're like, wow, like what does diversity and inclusion look like if, we need to, like, yes, there's these platforms where people can participate, but on the other hand, is that enough? And that actually is also what we kind of explored for our project as well, that we did on offshore wind energy. We currently, so I currently work for an international organization, but we do work very closely with federal government entities like the US EPA, HHS, and CDC, USAID, state government. And I think having had this opportunity to learn so much about how these different federal departments look at climate policy and how they shape them has really, I think, made me much more fluent in being able to communicate with them better and share exactly what the objectives are for our collaboration. And then finally, I think I would just say that I've been able to just have the space to learn about new information sources. I appreciated that it gave me a space to read, to learn new things, and there are a lot of resources that I still go back to this day.
Also, and Betsy, if I can jump
Yeah,
back
jump
in
in.
for a second, I would say that, for nonprofits, I know that this is not the recruitment for the non-policy group, but nonprofit group, but I feel like for one of the other things that was really helpful and that I've really used is just the definitions for what lobbying is and what kind of activities you can engage in and how much of those activities you can engage in. And also y'all provided some resources for engaging with organizations, particularly in California, around getting some guidance and advice, and that was really, really helpful for us too. So
Fabulous. And so last question before I turn to Q&A, what tips do you have for applicants? Swati, maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think I actually remember, I'm going to give a little hack because I did talk to one of your HR people on the train from a cocktail hour. And I had asked her, what stands out to you as a reader of these applications? And she said that it's often very clear when people are truly passionate about what they want to do in life, what they want to achieve through this fellowship. And also, it's great when people are able to celebrate achievements as a community and demonstrate both humility, but also, show that you are looking to be a leader in this field and that you are going to, I think, leverage the skill sets that you gain from this fellowship as well. And it's a rare opportunity, and so it's also great if you can demonstrate that you will treasure and value this because there's not a lot of fellowships like this out there.
Fabulous. Diana, what about you?
yeah, I would say you're going to get out of this what you put in. And, as is with any other, opportunity for learning, if you come into it with a dedication to actually absorbing the material, doing the networking, asking all of the questions, and like really throwing yourself into it, I think you're going to get a wonderful experience out of this program. So I think it's important to come in really fully committed to being a part of every single piece of this program in order to get the most out of it. I would also say that just as a challenge, there's quite a bit that you have to balance in terms of your personal life and the program during this time that you're in it. And so I think keeping that in mind for you as a tip going into this program, really kind of sorting things out, planning things out, and doing the best that you can, both professionally and if you're going to also be managing your job, or personally if you have family commitments and things like that to sort out. Really thinking through how you're going to work out the program, particularly during the boot camp portion of it.
Awesome. Well, thanks to you both for being amazing alumni and also for being here to answer all the questions to follow. So awesome. Well, thank you with that. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We look forward to receiving your applications by end of the day on March 7th. And hopefully many of you will be joining our amazing alumni network in the future. Thanks again and have a wonderful afternoon.